pleasure to welcome in studio Jon Favreau, former director and speechwriter for Barack Obama, one of the youngest presidential speechwriters ever. He's also a founding partner at FENWAY Strategies, a public relations and messaging firm, and a columnist at the Daily Beast. FENWAY Strategies, does that mean you're from Boston?
It does, yeah. All the partners from Boston.
That's so. Fenway Park.
Exactly.
But you're now a Californian, right?
I live in Los Angeles now, have for a year. So.
Before we do anything else,
sure.
What makes a good speechwriter?
A good speechwriter, I think it's someone who takes the time to listen and understand the person that they're writing for, right? You really got to know the voice. I mean, so basically it's not about your writing, right? And it's not about your views and your thoughts. It's about really trying to capture what the person that you're writing for wants to say.
Can a good speechwriter make an average speaker better?
I think so. I think so. I think that anytime you work on a speech that you're about to give, whether you have a speechwriter working with you or you work on it yourself, Obama worked on a lot of the speeches himself. The more you prepare, I mean, it's like anything, the better you're going to be.
Okay, let's get to current political things. You're aware of things. Is Joe Biden in or out, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, there's some days where I think he'll do it. I actually thought from the Colbert interview that, I know a lot of people thought that meant he was backing out, but I actually thought that it meant he might do it. But I think he's struggling with this, and I think he's got to just figure out what's right for him.
You know the president well. Would he be struggling if Biden gets in?
I don't know. I mean, I know that he loves the vice president. He's so happy he picked him, and I think the president believes he's been one of the best partners he's had, and was one of the best vice presidents the country's had. I also know the president deeply respects Hillary Clinton, thinks she's done an incredible job as Secretary of State. You know, is really close friends with her after they had a tough campaign. So I think that'd be really tough for him. I think he'd have two great choices.
Could Biden beat her?
I don't know. I mean, it's too hard to tell. I think that right now, you know, she's got a huge organization. She has a lot of people signed up with her, and you know, she'd be a great president. So I think Biden would certainly have an uphill challenge.
You make a Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. You know, it's interesting. I remember reading his announcement speech, and I was sort of struck by the simplicity of it, right? There wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance around it. It was just, you know, I'm here today because I think together we can start a revolution in our politics and economics and in our country, you know? And, it's a very simple populist message. And I think that the simplicity and the conversational tone sort of resonates with people, and I kind of think that's what's happening there.
They don't win, but Norman Thomas was Socialist Party candidate for president in 1932. He was the grandfather of Evan Thomas, the great political writer. He had 18 planks in his platform. All are law.
Wow.
All. The last one was health insurance.
Health insurance. Yeah. We finally got that done.
You're recently quoted as saying Hillary Clinton has not been connecting to voters as she can be. You say, I think she missed an opportunity to give big speeches and lay out a vision. Is she doing that now?
I think she's doing a lot better. I think she gave a pretty great speech, fired up a lot of folks in New Hampshire over the last weekend at the New Hampshire Democratic Party. I had the chance to catch that. And so I think she's feeling a little looser, she's feeling a little more comfortable on the trail. Look, after Obama almost locked up the nomination with a lot of the delegates, there was like a 6-month period where we were still running against Hillary Clinton. And I think when she thought her back was up against the wall there, she gave some of the best speeches that I've seen. And she just seemed like herself. And she was passionate, and she was an advocate for people, and she used humor well. She mocked Obama pretty well. So I've seen that from Hillary Clinton before all of us have. So I think she certainly has that in her. And I think she's showing it more now. You
said the president respects her a great deal.
He does.
There are these constant stories that there is an inner clash. Is there?
No, it's so funny. There was certainly a clash for all of us in 2008, right? Because we ran against them and it was really tough. And I think a lot of us expected that to carry over in the White House, and it just didn't. Her State Department staff is incredible, and every time I had the opportunity to see her in action or work on something where she was also involved, I couldn't detect any kind of clash.
What do you make of the email thing?
I think it's been so overdone. I think that, she apologized for it, and she's moving on. The campaign's moving on, and hopefully now the press moves on. It's sad that we have to take up that much time talking about it when she has proposed so many interesting policy initiatives. Bernie Sanders has, right? Like there's plenty of great, tough debate to be had. I just don't think that the email issue is one of those.
Governor Gilmore thinks she ought to quit the race because of it.
Yeah, well, no surprise there.
We'll be right back with more politicking. Do you see any comparison between Obama and Bernie Sanders? Coming out of nowhere, senator?
I do think, I mean, there's, Bernie Sanders has also obviously been in D.C. a lot longer than Obama had when he ran. But there's this, there's this frustration with politics and with people's economic conditions that Bernie has obviously tapped into, that the president had as well. And there's also, I see Senator Sanders out there talking about sort of grassroots politics, getting involved, building a movement. That's obviously something that the president ran on as well. But beyond that, I don't see too many similarities. So
Hillary came out against the Keystone Pipeline, which is one of Bernie's.
That's right. Yeah, he did a little while he was in the Senate still. Yeah, I noticed that. It's great. It's great. I'm personally opposed to the pipeline as well. So we'll see what the administration does. I imagine they probably want to move on that soon.
Are you supporting anyone? Are you working for anyone?
I'm not working for anyone, no. I think Hillary would be a great president. I have donated to her campaign. I've helped out a lot of my friends who are on that campaign. So that's where I am now. But I think I'll stay on the outside for this one, since I don't need the stress of another campaign.
Would Biden cause a conflict in you personally?
I mean, it's tough. I love Joe Biden, and I think he's a wonderful person. And when I saw him on that Colbert interview, I was sitting there with tears in my eyes, and just because I think he's such a wonderful person. So, but I've said I think he should jump in because I think he has something to offer. But I'd love to see them all campaign before I.
Concerning Mr. Trump, you recently tweeted, the Republican frontrunner is now flirting with fascism and ethnic cleansing. But hey, keep those cameras rolling. Great ratings. Do you think Donald Trump is what he's saying? I know him a long time. I don't think he is what he's saying.
I don't know. I think he says whatever comes to his mind. And I don't think there's a filter there. Which sometimes in politicians can be good, right? Because we all talk about authenticity. But with him, I think he has very little regard for anything but Donald Trump. And I think that when you are constantly thinking about yourself and your own ambitions and what's going to happen, and you're not thinking about the consequences of what you say ever, I think that's a problem. Especially if you're going to be the front runner of your party's, race for president.
Does he have a speechwriter?
He said he doesn't. No, I remember, I think someone asked him, and he said he doesn't have a speechwriter. He doesn't use prompters. He kind of just gets up there and goes, which works for him. I'm sure
that's true.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know anyone that would give him some of the lines that he's uttered. So,
will that take him far? Is he going to? Well, Bill Clinton thinks he's going to. I saw Bill last week. Former president said that he thinks he's going to eventually peter out.
I think so. I mean, the tough part is it's a crowded field. And, we saw Scott Walker drop out, but a lot of people haven't dropped out. They have a lot of super PACs that could keep a lot of candidates in long past the time that they should be in the race. And if there's that many candidates in a field and Donald Trump is pulling 30%, you could see him at least winning a state or two, for sure. The question is how many other people drop out, and if it's a race that's just Trump and Jeb Bush, or Trump and Marco Rubio, or Trump and Carly Fiorina, or whatever it may be, what does that race look like? I don't think we know yet. So,
as a Democrat, what candidate worries you the most on the other side?
I think we can sort of take all of them, but I think Marco Rubio is a strong candidate. I think he's got a good story to tell. I think he speaks very well. I think he seems more reasonable. I used to think that Jeb Bush would worry us, and after seeing him in action, I just don't.
What do you make of that?
It's weird. I had expected a much stronger campaign from him, and he doesn't ever seem like he's enjoying it that much. He just doesn't seem comfortable in his own skin, which, everything I had seen about the governor before this campaign, every time I saw him speak, I thought, oh, there's someone who actually doesn't toe the party line, and he seems pretty comfortable, and it really hasn't, he hasn't done that in this campaign, really.
Do you think maybe he isn't enjoying it?
He might not be. I mean, presidential campaign's a tough thing to enjoy. It's grueling, right, for any of these people who've done it.
Did you write for anyone running?
Running right now?
No, at all in the past. Did you write for Obama when he ran?
Oh yeah. I was his speechwriter in the Senate in 2005, and then I did the whole campaign. And I also worked on John Kerry's campaign when I was right out of college as a deputy junior speechwriter.
Is writing speeches rougher in a campaign than when the man is in office?
It's more stressful on a campaign because you don't have as much time to write them. But it's a little bit easier because your job when you're running for office is to inspire your supporters and persuade people who are on the fence. And that's really the only two jobs. So it's pretty easy to get a simple, memorable speech out that way. When you're in the White House and you're governing, you have a whole bunch of other things to consider. You have Congress, you have our allies around the world, you have to make sure you don't say something that will send stock markets tumbling, that will send people to war, right? So you have to be a little more careful when you're actually governing, and sometimes that constrains the writing process.
Is it harder when you have to write something, you can't agree with everything, when you have to write something you don't agree with?
It's funny, that's the most common question I get, and I don't know if maybe I'm just a big Obama Kool-Aid drinker, but I never had a situation with the president where I disagreed in a real substantive way with what I had to write. You know, I might have disagreed with words here and there and strategy and tactics, and you know, that's fine, but I've never had an issue where I've had to sit down and say, I'm on the other side of this and I don't know what to do. I think that would be difficult. I don't think I could write for someone who I didn't believe in.
Is he easy to write for?
He's easy to write for because he's someone who knows what he wants to say, is confident in his beliefs, confident in his vision, and also listens to himself a lot, right? Like I think that the politicians that have 30 advisors and then there's a speechwriter, and the speechwriter has to kind of listen to all the different advisors and put everything in a speech, and it's a big kitchen sink sort of speech. Those are the hard speeches to write. The speeches where it's Barack Obama and you and a couple other advisors, and you're sitting around a room talking, and the president has a pretty good idea of what he wants to say. It makes the job of a speechwriter a lot easier.
John, great talking.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do a lot more with you.
Thanks.
Jon Favreau, thanks for coming today, and I'm glad we finally got to have you here in studio.
For sure.